This conference will now be recorded.
Now that we're a minute 30 seconds late, we're going to call this meeting to order. And the clerk will note the members present. We're missing Councilor Foster, and we are now officially a committee of 3. So we do have a quorum present. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda for the Finance Committee Thursday, September 7th, 2023.
Okay, and I'm going to second that. Any opposition? Noting none, passes 2-0. Okay, we're going to talk about the fleet maintenance purchasing authorization request.
Hello. This is a housekeeping item that is strictly to keep us from getting a purchasing violations at the end of the year with auditors. Now that we're in a different mode of fixing our fleet vehicles, we use many vendors. And so fleet maintenance budget is about 2.2 million. And so that means that each vendor is going to end up with some will end up with over $60,000 of expenses for the year. And so this is to pre-approve that so that we don't have to come to you every single time it happens. What this does not do is change anything. If someone decides to buy a vehicle or a piece of equipment that costs more than $60,000, this does not pre-approve that. This only approves the maintenance and purchase of parts for the vehicle maintenance for the year. And I will stand for any.
No, did this previous. We've done this.
Be a yearly thing.
This is an annual house.
The housekeeping thing.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2024 fleet maintenance purchasing authorization request as presented on the consent agenda. Council meeting.
Second, anybody else got anything else? Okay, any opposition? Passes 2-0.
Thank you.
All right, now, we're going to talk about special equipment.
Committee chair, committee member. When we speak. Director, here to ratify a purchase of 2 side loader trucks for the solid waste department. Can I go to the next slide?
Next slide.
So solid waste was budgeted for the purchase of 2 side loaders for the FY budget. Purchase of the 2 systems from MCT. We're utilizing a CES contract. The total price was $860,000. Next slide. Here's the side loader, just for $940,000. Purchase was approximately $860,000. We will have a savings that we should hopefully become the community later on, see if we like some other equipment. At this time, we just need to ratify a purchase order that has been submitted. Purchase order was submitted to get our place in line so we can get the delivery in April 2024. Now, for any questions?
Question?
No.
And I have one question. This unit 330 and 316, is it on our get rid of stuff list that we're going to get to?
Not this time.
Not this time? Okay.
We're going to be submitting.
Just try to keep track.
Committee chair, committee members, we did send you at the end of all of our.
Yeah.
Sorry, addition, miles, years.
That's in the back. Thanks for saving us some money.
They actually gave it to this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever to bring it down.
Oh, very good.
That one.
You need to remind him, if you saved it here, doesn't mean you send it over there.
It's inside his budget. It's inside his budget. Commend him for doing that. Find other ways to buy additional equipment, which is sadly needed. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that ratify the PL request of purchase of 2 new auto car side loaders from MCT in the amount of $860,832.05 to be placed on the consent agenda, being that this was already sent through to infrastructure, and that means 3 other councilors already know about this. So
Second. Any further comments, questions? Okay. Any opposition? Hearing none, passes 2-0. On to item number 3, solid waste purchase.
We check the numbers. Again, we're coming in with a housekeeping item for ourselves. This is a solid waste purchasing authorization request, so we can exceed the $60,000 amount. Which should get covered full inventory purchases for the following vendors is total. This is our United States containers. These are little carts that have the wheels on them. In the past, this is what we can finish this up. The request is not to exceed amounts. If the increase is needed, the change order will be brought back to the city council. It streamlines our purchasing process and allows purchases to be made in a more timely manner. This is a concept that we've done through the city finance officer. So in the past, we did not have the budget necessary to get full loads. So now we'll be able to get full loads and have these partial orders. Just note, some of our freight is $5,000. Partial orders twice, that's $10,000. So we're trying to do large amounts, so we have enough funds for the city. This is just a purchasing authorization, so you can see that 6,000, we make that full purchase. We do have an Omnia contract. We're gonna put this out bid and find out, get an Omnia contract in Tucson that we're leaking into. We can utilize to make this purchase.
That will save us by using it.
Well, the contract, so these cans, we get them at about a 70% cost if we're gonna go to somebody else.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a significant amount, and we do run through these cans like crazy. Yes, they're really shares. If you notice at the end of that, then the next slide. One more slide. The previous years, we had 39,000 purchase totals, and then 2023, we had 38,000. So this will be able to help us make a full purchase.
How many of these units will this 150,000 represent?
Over, I think each load is 624. We get a 624 on one.
And how many loads is this? This is 3 loads? 150,000, about 3 loads?
Almost 3 loads.
And you think that's a year's supply?
Yes.
And that's what the original amount in your budget was?
Yes.
Yes, it's a one together.
No other questions?
What's your pleasure?
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we move to approve the solid waste purchasing authorization request for Toter LLC in the amount of not to exceed $150,000 on the consent agenda.
Second. Any opposition? Motion passes 2-0. Surplus property, oh boy.
Just housekeeping.
Now, I think you're a little more wordy than that normally.
Oh, we'll make up for it here.
Okay, please slide, it's got the list on it. I want it a little longer than that.
You have the list.
I have the list.
Yeah,
Okay, questions? What's your
most of it's
pleasure?
all junk, crap, no value. Oh. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution 23XX for the disposal of surplus property equipment to be placed on the consent agenda at the next council meeting.
Second. Any opposition? Passes 2-0. Okay, moving along. We're now to spending of 105,883.
Go to the next slide. This is a budgeted amount, where it is housekeeping. We have to spend $72,549 and possibly some change in order to remain being a public library in the state of New Mexico. If we are not a public library in the state of New Mexico, we do not get bond money. We cannot apply for any federal grants. We cannot get any state aid. This is not above a budgeted amount. I'm also asking that if we get any gifts, grants, donations, and this includes the GEO bond money. I do not return any money. If I get down to even 3 cents, I will spend it on something. And so this allows me to, if I have any extra money with state aid or GEO bond, or we get a grant or a memorial, it's even $25, I don't have to come back to you and ask again.
And this is a leverage grant. We have to spend X dollars to qualify, correct?
No, this is not a library grant. That is a budgeted amount.
No, but the grant money that you
The
discussed,
GEO bond money?
yes.
The GEO bond money we have to spend in order to remain a public library. We have to spend, according to the state, $72,529 and some odd cents. I just brought it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Making sure to cover all the bases. Question? Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder, what'd you do with Tiger's money?
With the money that we did for the house and sale, okay, I believe it is right now in revenue. And I would like to talk to my library board about this, but my plan is to put that towards the play and learn area.
We have a nice program for kids over there.
Yes.
I mean, you've done very well.
So I got a motion, put it on the consent agenda.
Yep, that's what you're gonna get,
Okay.
unless you wanna make that motion. I've made
No.
every motion so far.
You're gonna, I've made every second so far. Get over it.
I couldn't get you to make a motion, yes, or to, on the finance.
Well, I got
on the legal
scolded.
committee. I could sit here and not make motions and see what happens, so. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the spending of $105,883 from the general fund, as well as any additional funds received through restricted gifts, donations, grants, or memorials for books, recorded books, DVD, processing fees, and handling charges through the vendor Ingram. To be placed on the consent agenda for the next council meeting.
Second. Any opposition? Hearing none, passes 2-0.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
might I ask the clerk to take record, if these two don't play well with each other, give them a check mark for not playing well with others? Thank you.
You were part of the reason I got scolded the other day.
You shouldn't talk so loud.
That's right.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the utility rate.
Well,
No, I got something else?
Have to spend it.
Oh,
Do it.
oh, there you go. We got to talk about,
Vector truck.
Back to first.
well, I was trying to get ahead to the juice part. Go ahead. You're up.
Mr. Chair, committee members, I'm here asking you to consider approval to purchase a 2024 Vector for the wastewater treatment plant from Pete's Equipment Repair of Albuquerque, New Mexico, in an amount of $527,953.19. The Vector unit is used to clean and maintain the city's sewer collection and sewer system to ensure proper flow, prevent backups into homes or businesses, and overflow out of manholes. This will replace Unit 355, which is a 2008 Vector, and has cost the department $292,719.77 in maintenance and repair costs over the last few years. Recommended replacement for this type of equipment is every 10 years. So we've exceeded that by 5 years already. So we've used it way more than the recommendation. This Vector is to be purchased via Federal Signal Sourcewell contract number 101-221-BTR, which gives a $11,792.01 discount off the original price. It was a budgeted item for $500,000, and it did come in over $27,000. And we will pull that money out of the maintenance and repair of equipment account to get the rest of it out of the regular operating budget. We did take it to Infrastructure Committee, and it was recommended approval 3-0 to send to the consent agenda. With that, I stand for any questions.
And I would like to add that we will be back in front of you again with the budget adjustment for the 27,000 because that is not on Tony's budget adjustment today.
Mr. Chairman, I want you to note that all my capital purchase items for the water department came in under budget. Just for the
You're not
record.
saying the wastewater. But yeah, we did get an estimate back in January, and just because of the delay and the cost of materials gone up so much, I mean, it's just hard to get an accurate estimate back then. They give us that $500,000 estimate back in January, but here we are in September now. So it came in above.
How does it feel when your butt's pushed under the bus?
Man, it's tough.
I'll pull them out on the other side.
It's tough, I tell you. Then they back over you.
Okay, are you looking to me for another motion? Thank God the pay is so high that you pay. Wow.
You need a bottle of water?
Yeah. Just so you know, I return all of these back to the city. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the purchase of the 2024 tractor for the wastewater treatment plant from Peace Equipment Repair Inc. of Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the amount of $527,953.19 to be placed on the consent agenda at the next council, with the understanding that the overage of $27,953.19 will be taken out of the maintenance and repair equipment account.
Second. Any further comments? Any opposed? Motion passes 2-0. Now, we're to the rates.
On his.
We didn't have you.
That's how I'm gonna help him out.
Okay, so we were requested to do some revisions to this, and we did. Before we get into that, though, I'd like to discuss something that happened on Wednesday, August 30th. About 11 o'clock in the morning, we shut down the 48-inch transmission line along West Country Club Road, so that new subdivision out there could tie in their stuff. Pretty quick after that, we got our first call of a main break over on East 23rd and Cole. Go to the next slide. East 23rd and Cole. And then shortly after that, 24th and North Garden. And then we tried to make a swimming hole out of City Hall over here on Richardson. And then it went down to East Forest, the 400 block down there. And then we went to the 700 block of Adams Drive. And that was just because we shut down one transmission line. It's the shock wave that it sends out through the system, and it starts finding anywhere that it can get out. Next slide. That's what we call blowing and going. That one was over on Cole and West 23rd. So the city's response to this was 3 supervisors for what we were worth. 26 employees, 3 Vactors. It was ours and 2 from the wastewater treatment plant, 4 crew trucks, 2 backhoes, and 3 pumps. The last crew left the next morning about 12:15. So that was a whole department out and some from others. We even had the warehouse guys out helping us. That's where we are with our system. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but this is an example of how bad our system is right now. Next slide. Well, staff was requested to complete a couple of revisions to the rate study that we presented last month. Those revisions were because of depreciation, some capital outlay changes that we made because of revised pricing in the 4 new crew trucks that we had budgeted. We actually were able to lower our bad debt amount 50% because when I figured it the first time, it was for the total, all 3 utilities. So I gave Abraham some and Lorenzo some and spread the wealth around. And then after that, we went through and did the adjustments to the rates. Next slide. So depreciation for the second half of 2024 is $2,417,402.86 or $21.88 per customer per month. That's what it's going to cost us. The reason this is such a high number is because the whole amount is being bore on the second half of the year instead of over the 12-month period. So we have to pay for it in 6 months instead of 12. And then beginning in 2025, that amount gets spread over the whole year, which lowers that per customer per month down to $10.94. Capital outlay was increased to properly fund the purchase of 4 new crew maintenance trucks. The new crew maintenance trucks are approximately $200,000 each, fully outfitted. The trucks we're going to upgrade the trucks to a Class 6 with a 2,000-pound GVW. We're going through brakes and tires like crazy on the trucks that we have now. They are severely undersized for what we're carrying on. The body will be upgraded for a service body with a crane, air compressor, generator, work lights, and safety lighting. We need to actually set up our crew trucks so the guys can do what they're supposed to be doing out in the field. Because we're doing some crazy stuff that is safe, but not necessarily proper. Next slide. Bad debt was originally calculated on the total bad debt for all 3 utilities. So the revised amount represents the second half of 2024 estimate, with the 2025 full year being $741,796.50. And what it worked out to be is about 51% of what the total amount was that we had on the previous presentation. Next slide. So the new rate calculations are based on revenue and expense. I handed that out to you guys. For the old people in the room have the bigger sheets now.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. So if you can see on that, we've got, the top is our budgeted stuff with the personnel, operating, our loans, transfers, and capital. And then below it breaks it into the emergency repairs, debt service, operation and personnel, infrastructure reinvestment, capital outlay, transfer to the air center, bad debt, depreciation. The one thing to remember on this is the cost down at the bottom, the cost per customer is not a rate. That's how much it costs us to provide the service per customer. You use that when you move over and start building the rates. Any questions on that sheet? And this goes out to 2028. I use the same assumptions on this that we used before, just updated the numbers with the depreciation and the capital.
Question on the depreciation. Depreciating the current assets on the books that we've already paid for?
It is everything but infrastructure. So it's the everything that we have a loan on was pulled out because he's picking up the loans in here.
As a separate item, that's right. But you're picking up
All of the old stuff, not anything new coming on, just everything
Right.
old.
building into the rate now, you're gonna build in capital improvements.
Right, right.
So are you double hitting it when you're doing that now?
Not with the old.
So the old's paid for, except for the debt structure. We paid for it.
It's depreciating. We're
It's-
still paying for it because it's an enterprise fund. So it is.
Paying for it, book wise, but not cash wise.
Right.
I'm talking about cash wise here. So
Okay.
if you take it off of cash, the thing that you should only be looking at is what your capital improvement amount is. To me, you're hitting it twice. If you take the depreciation, it's a non-cash item, and you're trying to build up to buy your infrastructure, and he's saying he's going to put $4 million a year into the infrastructure.
But it's.
So you're hitting.
It is an expense out there.
It's an expense, but it's a non-cash expense.
But it ultimately affects revenue. It's going to reduce your revenue. It's going to reduce their bottom
For
line.
book purposes. But if you did it on a cash flow operating basis, you would add that back in. And so.
Robert.
So I question whether that's a legitimate add back to the rate structure. Because you've already paid for it. So
Right.
I'm looking at
And
this
I agree with
structure
that.
as cash on cash. And we're saying we're going to put $4 million in there for infrastructure for future, which means you do that. You won't put that into depreciation cycle for the years coming. So that's the same principle as what I'm saying is we've already paid for that stuff.
Well, but because he's picked that up going forward, so we wouldn't pick that up on the back end.
Right. So I'm just saying the whole depreciation thing should come out of your rate study because it's cash on cash. So
Okay.
unless you can prove me different.
Well, and I'll have to think about it.
Think about it. Yeah, think about it.
Because I really want to redo this again.
That's only one line item. So,
And we'll figure that out before Abraham has to do his.
run that by
No.
the
I'll have to
accounting.
go back and look at that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And if you could question the accounting firm to see what their feeling is as well. So, sorry, Robert.
That's fine. Because I would really do my heart good if we could make that go away. Because that bumps.
It's a big number.
It is.
And,
It's a lot of money.
and whether it's not a cash on cash number. So,
well, and it was 5 million, so
Yeah. But you can see that, that's almost $11 per month per customer. That's
right. So but you take that number plus your infrastructure rebuild, you're talking $29 a month
yes.
per customer. So
So if we could get that out of there, that would be very good.
So I'm not the authority, but that's my
okay.
thought process on it.
She made me put it in there.
Robert.
I know we had some discussion about this we had some discussion about it, so.
Yeah, you didn't hear the comments that before the meeting between these two.
We have enough accountants in this room to figure this out.
And I'm not one of them.
And that gets old quickly.
Okay, so we want to look at the basis for the depreciation allowance.
Yeah.
And if you can justify it, then we got to put it in. If not, we get to pull it out.
Comes out.
And that lowers the rate study to probably a more tolerable figure.
Well, we'll just see where it comes out because.
No, I understand.
Well, and you could look at the old numbers, the numbers from the original one that I did. And that you're going to be a lot closer if we get to take all of the depreciation out.
Well, I don't think you can take it all out because some of it is future purchases or to balance money that's already Tomorrow? No?
You know, so they have that, Counselor, they already have the borrowed money in here. It's going to cost $10.63 a
Okay.
month for use credit for the public funds inspection. Plus you anticipated in here as well, the debt service on the country club.
And you had an idea about putting that $10 figure on the
Separate
bill?
line item on the billing.
Yeah.
These would, that's what I would do is, that's what I'm working on now, is actually all of this would be, this stuff below,
Yeah.
that would all be on the bill. So people can see where the money's going.
Right. I think that's a great.
Yep.
Right.
Because you didn't invent the debt. You just have the debt.
Yep.
You know, and it's got to be serviced. And I think what it'll allow people to see is what the real rates are for water. I
And,
like that idea.
and you have a lot more buy-in if they see what they're actually,
Oh,
where their money goes. You know, what is it doing?
correct. You just say, oh, you just raised my water rates.
Yeah.
No.
I got no problem. People working. I'd like you to come out and work for.
I'm talking about unsafe. How are we doing on our collections, you know?
Lewis. I think that's the whole notice that I was writing. But I understand what he's saying with cash flow.
I knew the account would come across.
Well, I had to shift gears.
We're still doing a lot of shut-offs.
Yeah, where are we? Kenny, where are we on the accounts receivable at the water department? Is it getting any better? Still at $1 million plus?
Yeah, we're still at $1 million plus.
3.5 last thing we had, which is,
Yeah, I think the last report I ran, I tried to run one when Abraham was over yesterday. But the one I ran before was $1 million, not quite $1.4 million.
It's not really improving. Have we,
No.
have we started the collection service yet?
In the last parts of getting that set up.
Getting that contract going on that.
Wow.
And we can start hearing the screaming.
Well, it's not free. Somebody got to pay for it. And you see what every other customer that does pay his bill, they're going to pay. Pay $3.36 a month.
Well, on collecting on the liens that we've been filing. Some
Everybody,
of those are being set up on payment plans too, so it's not a quick fix.
no,
well, but it's still helping the county.
everybody in town is going to pay $3 a month for people who don't pay their bill.
Right.
So I think that's a good thing to show people as well, so what they're paying for. all along.
And some of the comments I've heard on that is they want to know whose bill they're paying.
Wow.
They want it published every month in the newspaper.
Not quite that
Probably should have.
strong.
There's a lot of, we don't have the budget to put all the names.
How are we doing on the commercial accounts?
Because we haven't done much with them, they're probably in, the ones that were bad are probably in worse shape now.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Good. How often, what's your time frame for shut-offs, remember? After delinquency,
On the third month.
90 days?
Yeah.
And that's why one thing that we'll be talking about as we go further into this is how much to start charging for a deposit.
Yeah.
And we'll do that we'll work out a formula that, according to your credit rating and all that kind of stuff, where you're going to sit.
Right now, you all are focusing more on shut-offs for residential. Not,
Then some commercial too.
okay.
Well, I noted a city employee with the shut-off key over his shoulder driving to the house before he went someplace else, so.
Some of these big businesses get really excited when you show up and say, hey, I'm here to shut off your water. And well, you can't do that. I went, oh yeah, it's just quarter turn out there, no problem. When you walk into their lobby and say that, they get really excited.
Well, it's irritating. It's on the backs of the employees of the city. Them not paying them. That's whose back it's on. It's not on mine. It's on the employees of this city. So shame on them for not. I understand people getting financial difficulty, but there's some people just don't pay.
Yeah, there's some of these that are big businesses and.
Okay, thanks, Robert.
Are we ready? Next slide. So here's what the rate structure will look like. This is, all the stuff that I'm presenting is just the in city limits people. So basically, if you're out of the city limits, anything that you see here is double. Is the way it works.
Question on that. I know that's done by ordinance, was it not?
Yes.
The double. What's the logic behind charging double?
So everywhere that I've worked, we've always done either 1.5 or 2 times the rate. And the logic behind it and what the book says about it is these people are not paying property taxes. So because they don't pay property tax, they're not contributing that way into the fund or to pay for some of the fund's expenses. Now, whether I agree with it or not is not, that's you guys to figure out, but.
Well, I question why it's 2 times and the logic behind it, so I can understand it.
And that's what that's.
Well, and I think in repairing some of that, it's more costly. The farther out you get, we've dealt with one in particular that you all ended up having to move the water meter out of the center of the road to the side because it was in the middle of the road.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
What else for you to ponder?
Yeah, it is. Because when we're talking about these rate increases, people in the county or, they're county residents. I don't know, how many are there?
So if you look on your last sheet, this one.
Yeah.
And go down, it shows. So the second one is rate comparison residential outside city limits. So you have 4761, so you have a total of 153 residential. Let's see, inside. Small commercial outside is 14.
Okay.
And large commercial outside is 4. So there's not a lot.
It's just when we raise it, boy, it sounds like there's more than 150 people.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of complaints about it.
That's usually water only also. They don't pay garbage. They don't pay.
Right, they'll pay anything else, no sewer, just water only.
We don't supply the service.
Right.
Now, anybody on the outside that is not on Main Street going to the base? Or is that considered city limits on either side of that road? Or is just the road the?
You got the right.
I believe they're still in the city limits along, right? No?
No,
No, there,
We'd have to look at the.
The only part of city property is the median.
like, you got the right of way. And that's where the city goes.
And I believe they're charged outside the city limit rates.
well, because you have, that Burrito Express when it burned down
Yep. And Allsups
and all that stuff, when that burned down, I think the city sent them a bill for putting out the fire. And because it was outside the city
Yeah.
limits. I mean, so I think we only have the roadway. And that's nothing else. I don't know if we have the.
Well, actually, to the fence, the walking trail.
Yes, the right of way.
Is in the right of way. So it's not just in the road, it goes out to the fence almost.
So water billing, they looked that up, correct, on where they're located, see if it's city or county, and that's how they set it, their accounts up. Any correct? Robert's saying, yeah, so even.
I assume.
Right.
The ones that I've done out that way, that's what we've always done.
I remember we gave some guy permission to build him a recreational marijuana / medical.
Across from New Mex Plastics.
Yeah, and that's not in the city because we had a big deal about who's going to pay for the sidewalk.
That's in the city.
That's in the city.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it jogs a little bit, Mayor.
There is, because there's some lots out there that it, I guess as they were going by, somebody wanted to be inside the city, so it, there's a couple of little things.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have approved it.
Right. It should have been counties, not us. Okay. All right, so like you got some more calculations to do, so.
What's nice is it's all in a spreadsheet, so all I have to do is go in and
Then quit your complaining.
hurt my feelings.
You should, because Robert, I'm going to stand
Tell
up.
us more.
I'm going to stand up for Robert here, just 1 second.
Don't get too carried away.
Well, if you'll read his front page, what he says, and it's absolutely true. Citizens and leadership of the city of Roswell, our water utilities are in trouble.
Amen.
After decades of lack of foresight and use of enterprise funds for projects other than required infrastructure upgrades, it's time to make a change, and it will be an uncomfortable, expensive endeavor. Our water infrastructure is crumbling beneath us. Infrastructure has a lifespan of approximately 50 years. A significant portion of our infrastructure has exceeded its lifespan, is now showing its age. The time has come to step up and reinvest in Roswell's infrastructure. Yes, it is expensive. Yes, rates need to go up significantly. Yes, it will be hard on families and businesses. However, the alternative will be far more expensive in the future. We have approximately 350 miles of water piping in the ground. We will not get this completed in our lifetime or even that of our children or grandchildren. Even knowing this, the time is to start now. The rates proposed in the utility rate analysis are a good starting point. This will provide a kickoff point for reinvesting in the future of the city of Roswell. Robert, I commend you. This is absolutely correct. Your observation is we've kicked the can down the road and kicked the can down the road, and there is no more road.
And kick the can down the road.
And, you know, a perfect example of that are the 2 water tanks out there. We kicked that can down the road for 11 years, I guess, something of that point. And now you're saying stop it because we're going to pay dearly.
And unfortunately, this isn't just our problem. This is a nationwide issue.
It's been left behind.
Yeah.
Cities have ignored their water infrastructure.
Because it's not fancy. You know, you don't get to say, hey, look at this nice park, or hey, you know, we spend a whole bunch of money on stuff that we bury in the ground.
People expect when they turn their faucets on to have water.
Yes.
Clean water.
And when they don't, we've got a real problem. Now's the time.
I'll even give you that boy on that.
We're very well done.
I've written that a couple of times.
Well, I would like to say, I commend you for the methodology you've used putting this together. And it's not done yet, I understand that. But I think it's well thought out and I think it's justifiable. We just gotta gotta get the numbers right. That's what's left.
Plus, we didn't spend a lot of money on a rate study. I didn't spend authority probably done this and done it by the book.
I really do not like paying engineers to do this because it's not rocket science. It really isn't. You just follow the formulas in the book.
Yeah.
So the next.
He bring his book back. He loaned me his book and I was reading through it and he made me bring it back to me.
There was weird drool marks on it though. I don't know.
No,
Can you bring it back on time?
No. So the next couple of slides just discuss the different rates, how much they go up. We have residential now. There is small commercial. There are outside the city limit, small commercial. There's large commercial, outside the city limit, large commercial, and irrigation inside and outside the city. We've spread it out a little bit more. The way we had it before worked for a while. The issue that you have is Walmart costs more to service than Grandma Smith on the corner house. So you have to, when you do that, you have to adjust for that. And our previous rates did not do that.
citizens were carrying, I mean,
The
the households were carrying.
Yes,
more burden.
they were carrying a lot of the burden. So we kind of evened that out. I'll get to this when we get into concerns. Anybody have any questions on the rate calculations? They're ugly. I'll tell you, they're ugly.
Sometimes you gotta bite the bullet.
Well, again, this hasn't been looked at properly in a long time. And at some point in time, you gotta tighten the belt.
Well, and the rates that we were using before didn't make sense because there was weird gaps in them. You know, you'd go from one and then the next one down would be 32% increase. And then the one below that would be a 10% increase.
Right.
And there was no rhyme or reason to it. It made sense to somebody at some time. And there was a reason for it. So some concerns I have with this rate study, reoccurring costs are partially funded by consumption revenue. Your reoccurring costs are supposed to be done in your base rates. But to do that was very, very expensive. The problem with putting it over on your consumption side is that can vary drastically. So, you know, the new rates go into effect, everybody goes, okay, you have 1 shower a week and, you know, stuff like that.
Consumption goes down.
Yeah, and your consumption will go down. The consumption revenue is based on estimates since we don't have good numbers out of Tyler. So I just kind of went middle of the road. And it's unknown what the new rates, how that's going to affect our customers' water usage. Currently, we don't have a full year of base numbers coming out of COVID. And going back prior to COVID, those weren't really good numbers to look at either. And that's something Janie and I have both talked about several times and kind of agree on this. We're also not sure what the implementation of the debt collection service and credit check service, how that is that going to affect revenue? Next slide. My next concern is how and when do we present this to the full city council? I want to borrow a bulletproof vest from the police department, and I should be able to carry a taser.
I don't have one that big.
While you're there,
Then I can wear 2.
while you're there, get 11 more. Everybody needs one too.
So staff would recommend a special meeting to discuss the rate study and be able to discuss how to proceed. I don't think this should be done at a regular city council meeting because we will be there till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And after 8 o'clock, I get grumpy.
That's what we're grumpy.
And then the other thing is how and when do we start presenting this to our customers? Because if we wait too long, it's going to be bad. If we don't do it, I don't know. I just don't know. I think that's when we need to pull our public affairs people in. But I think we need to start getting some information out even before the special meeting.
Yep.
And if you look, we have this, I put an infographic in here that we could use. It doesn't say what we're going to do, but it says why we're doing it. So even if we just adjust it a little bit, we're still getting the information out there. We need to really get the reasoning for the rate increase out there. It's not just so we can fund, 3 new parks and pave a road here and there. We need to show the people why we're doing it and where their money is going to go. And then have some commitment from the council that says we're not going to move this money. Or if we do, we're going to, what I would propose in the ordinance is that we put that you have to have a public hearing on 1 month before you move the money And then the next month, you actually have the vote to move the money. Because that gives everybody 30 days to find their counselor and discuss life with them.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not in favor of ever moving the money. It's an enterprise fund. It stays in the enterprise. That's what it's all about. And the enterprise fund should not have to be supported by general funds. It needs to stand on its own 2 feet.
Well, and
And it hasn't. And so that's what you're headed here with this,
Well-
Robert, is explain to people that's where it's going.
Two things have kind of occurred in the past is that they've been using these enterprise funds as their personal piggy bank. And now these enterprise funds, the amount of money, the cash that they have on hand is very, very small.
Yep.
And we've been forced, since you and I have been here, we've spent general fund money back to these enterprise funds. We had to spend a lot of this COVID money, besides setting everybody's rates to zero. We've had to use other COVID money that could have been used in other areas and back to the enterprise funds. It's all out of whack. And I agree with my other chairman of legal that we've got to be very careful with this, and we've got to explain that you got to pay. Ladies and gentlemen, you ratepayers need to pay attention, and you need to hold your city council members' feet to the fire about just moving money around. You can't, it's got to stop because you can't keep track of where you're at if you just keep moving this stuff. I mean, in the past, they moved money in this committee every month. Every month. And they'd go to city council and they'd be moving money around. And you can't, you got to stop that kind of stuff. You lose track of where you're at, if you ever had track of it anyway. And it's got to, today's the day. This is the time. We're gonna change the way we do business.
Right.
And we've got to. It's not fair to the ratepayers, the way they've been taking care of their business.
so the next concern that I have is rate changes during an election cycle.
No impact.
We need to,
We just got to step up.
We've already had that issue, I think, when the last rate increase did not take place during an election cycle.
Yeah.
We're not going to go down that path.
but I have already been told by one council member that I agree with it, but I'm not voting for it because I won't get reelected.
That's his problem.
So-
That's their problem.
But we need to be real and, acknowledge that it's the elephant sitting in the room. Next slide. So what is our contingency plan if this doesn't pass? If it doesn't pass, there's not enough revenue right now, the way we stand, to make it to the end of the year in the current budget.
Yeah.
We will have a shortfall. So at some point in time, we will have to start budgeting out of the general fund to take care of some of this.
And Zoom doesn't have any leeway.
How much do you have left in the general fund?
I hope we make it with deficit in the general fund.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
These funds will be spent one way or the other.
Yeah.
We're at that point that it's,
Now, pay,
because it's going to happen.
well, and we saw a picture, Ed and I did, sorry we don't have it on the display, of some concrete pipe that's leaking, needs to be fixed, and we got 42 miles of that stuff. You can't fix that stuff. You gotta go dig it out of the ground and replace it.
So what that repairs easily $40,000-$50,000.
That's one was about 55,000.
Just for this fix.
Yeah, just for this one.
We're providing the parts.
The days of putting Band-Aids on our plumbing is got to
We
go.
could just address something real quick, Robert. It's a letter that was sent to the mayor from the Department of Finance and Administration concerning our budget. Due to estimated expenditures and transfers exceeding estimated revenue, your entity's general fund cash balance is being depleted by 18%. Careful control of expenditures and attention to revenue collection efforts is recommended to avoid further depletion of reserves. So guess what? There is no money to transfer out of the general fund. That's coming from the state DFA. That's not our words, that's the state's. And those are, I hate to use these words, but those are the sins of the past. And we're still paying for them. And we're going to stop. And that's what you're doing with this rate study. We're going to stop. So if we don't do this, we're going to have a real problem. And that's not my language. That's the state DFA.
That's why we got a special audit here.
You know, and then, and looking at that, just think back, how many councilmen will sit there and tell you we're not broke? I mean, we don't have the money. If we get a $3 million grant, we don't have the money to pay that, to take the grant, because you don't get paid until it's built. So we don't have the money to do the grant, to hold them, you know, to pay until we get reimbursed. I mean, we're broke. We need every dime we can get just to operate the city. And I don't care what anybody says that says we're not broke. We are broke. And who you name it, the problems we have because we're in this situation before us, it doesn't matter whose fault it was. We have to fix it.
Yep.
And I can blame it. I can name people to blame right now, but it doesn't do any good. I mean, they're gone. Hell, they've never been a part of the solution. So we can't count on them to recognize it's a problem.
Well, it's not only a problem here, we're talking about water. But we got to do something with that water whenever you're taking your shower. It's got to go somewhere, and that's going to be a big expense. It's moving out there. We got to pick up the trash. Same thing happened in that enterprise fund.
Yeah.
And we just got to bring some sanity back to this deal. And it's not going to be easy, and it's going to upset a lot of people. But I think the best we can do is do an education as far in advance as we can see and get the numbers together. And then I got elected to do the right thing. I don't make my decision based on, well, I wonder if I'm going to get reelected. If I don't get reelected next time, I don't get reelected. And that's the way it is. That's the way it should be. Because I always will have more information than my next door neighbor. That's the reason why I got this job. And they expect me to have the information together to make the tough decision. And I thank Robert for bringing this part of the puzzle to our attention.
What we're really hoping is that with our infrastructure reinvestment, that we can go to the state and say, we have $4 million. Let's get a 50% match from you and double our money every year. Lewis is pretty sure that he can do some finagling to make that happen.
Well, we've got an issue with those water tanks. The mayor brought it up. We're going to have a grant for $3 million, if I remember correctly. And we're going to also be tied to a $5 million loan. That's not leveraging your money. That's not even pairing it up right. And the biggest reason anybody's given me why that grant balance is the wrong way is because we're not charging enough for our service.
And this brings us closer to that number, but we're still not quite there. But we're a lot better than we are currently.
We got to make a stab at it, and this is not, we don't make a decision today and then redo it in 6 months. We're going to have to look at it and keep looking at it, keep an eye on it. And hopefully in 2 or 3 years, we can look at it again and decide if we made the right decision 3 years ago.
And that's one thing that I had talked to Hess about a little bit is actually setting it in the ordinance when that it'll be looked at in January. Discussions will be had at the council meeting in this month, and the rates will be set at this month for a rate change in July.
I'm certainly open to that conversation. And I think it's a worthwhile conversation.
I think it's, you owe it to the citizens. That's who we're here for.
Yeah.
And the other thing is setting up the restricted accounts. So that money can't go anywhere else without action.
Got to lock it down.
Yeah. Chair, I'll comment briefly on that. The issue that, like the previous expenditures from previous councils, state law already required that NMSA 324.3 very explicitly says any utility that has bonds out, which water sure does,
Right,
cannot transfer any money out of the system.
period.
Some people
And they did it.
ignore the law because they think.
So, yeah, there's an exception to that for administrative costs back to the cities, HR, reimbursing for things like that, but
But that's why we paid $1 million something for law enforcement and $1 million something
that was,
for, yeah,
that'll be discussed in the upcoming audit.
so, yeah. That's what that was.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, indirect costs can't be for something that a citizen otherwise gets. So police and fire protection or something that should not be paid in addition to administrative costs. It has to be internal to the city. So because HR handles all your hiring, it goes through here. Legal services, only the best for water.
So when are we going to get that? When are we going to get that? Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. I walked into that.
So I guess.
You know, you score too, you know that.
Well, I'm sure you'll get a fist bump one of these days.
With that, is there any other questions or concerns? And where do we go now?
Well, I think that we need, in my opinion, and please chime in, or the mayor, that we need to look at the numbers. I think you've made your case. We're going to have to do something. No question about that. We just need to zero in on a number and then see what the rest of the city council wants to do and the citizens.
Yeah, Robert, I'd like to see what our base water rate is broken out. So you're going to show them what they're paying for water, each line item that's on here, so that we can see what an average person's
Okay,
water bill will be.
I'll just take my water bills. I'll take mine and show you what it would look like.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. Take what you're paying now and then show it, because then I think it'll be very clear to people, once you do that, what the components of that bill really, that are hidden in the bill now and not being properly. So I just think if you do that, it'll be beneficial.
I'll do a residential, a large commercial,
Yeah.
so everybody will see what it looks like.
Right.
Well, and I think when you go in and you're trying to justify it, the last 2 years, we've had some major water breaks. And it's all we're gonna give.
Yep.
And we can go in and pull costs on last year. And, you know, your pictures were very telling up there of the 5 that you had just last week.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I was hoping we could get a picture of Mr. Glenn here, so a nice picture of him, so we could put it out there. I'm afraid somebody might, because they both wear red shirts and stuff. I'm afraid somebody will recognize Burris and think because he's got a red shirt on or something. We need to make sure we get a good picture of him.
I don't have a problem with
Out
that.
there, because we don't want anybody to hurt old.
There's a picture out there of Robert's legs.
My legs made it on Facebook. They were referred to as chicken legs. I took great offense to that.
That's
All right. I think you've got further direction. Get started moving this forward.
Yeah, do you want to bring it to the next council to discuss? That's what we need. Are we going to move this thing to?
Well,
The council needs to be aware of where we're at in this race, I believe.
The only thing that we really need to do is figure out that depreciation thing, because all the other numbers were gone. Taking that out will take an hour or so.
Right? And then a presentation of what a bill will look like.
Yes, and I can build that pretty quick.
if you're talking about your bailiwick, what do you want to do?
If you want, we probably ought to have should have a workshop. Then I think we need to go forward. But we're too late to
We can't.
kick it down the road again. I mean,
Time to move. Time to.
yeah. So I'd have work study and then pass it.
Okay. Do you want us to, after they get through the final sheet, you want us to pass on it here and then take it to the workshop? Is that?
If you guys would set a workshop, then I will know that it's done.
And then he can bring it where it needs to come to.
Yes.
Well, if you get the information, you can pass it on and have him direct him to bring the appropriate materials to the workshop.
Okay.
Then we can keep going.
Let's do the workshop, and then once we get that hammered out, then we can bring it back.
Get it done.
And then there's gonna be some ordinances and stuff, it sounds like, that need to also be drafted. That needs to go to legal committee.
Yeah, because we've got it's part of the big ordinance, the big revision that we were doing. So
Well, we may have to.
we'll just hide it in there.
Two hurdles, but
We'll just hide it in that and.
Hide it.
No.
no, we ain't hiding nothing. You gotta know,
This is way too big of a thing that,
it's time we showed what's going on.
and as soon as we get it through that work session, I think that's the time that we start getting the stuff out to the public.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Because we can have Chantel do it at all the events that she's setting up her booth at. We can, and she's been going out and talking to a lot of groups. So we can have that as part of it. We'll get her a vest and too. And
Well,
You know, one thing we probably ought to have with this whole plan and the work study and everything, we need to have a plan for develop proposals about how to zero-scape your yards and everything else and how to use less water.
Yep.
Now, we need to put something out there so we can encourage people that when you plant your yard, use some kind of grass that doesn't take much. I mean, we haven't had much rain this year.
so much for the fescue. It likes a lot of water.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to have to come in with this, but we're ready for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your,
I mean, one of the things where we have all these streets, that you're gonna have houses on, with the streets are real narrow, you might have to have people pave a parking thing in the front of their house just so, you know, so you can get through the streets to pick up trash cans. I mean, I don't know, just figure out what to do, save water or help them.
there'll be some adjustment made by everybody. Okay, anything else on this?
Hope not.
No, I think we went into it pretty deep and got direction, and we just got to figure out how we're going to proceed working down the road.
When did we want to have that workshop?
That's his.
Well, we'll see, you get your stuff done, we'll do it.
Give us a date so we have somewhere to head for.
Calendar out.
So we don't just keep on
No.
Well,
Let's get it.
2 weeks.
See what the clerk says.
we, all right.
You want to get with your clerk and figure that out then?
Yeah, sure.
We'll be ready in 2 weeks.
Okay, well, get it done, bring it to us, and we'll put it on the deal. We'll do it in 3 days.
Okay.
September 22nd. Appreciation.
But yeah, bring your book over.
Mark it down. If he's late, you got your salary in hand.
Is that?
And mark it down. If you're late, we'll cut your salary in half.
Right in the 22nd, so what you want.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to perform, we'll give you a date.
Yeah, so.
I'll make it.
Renzo will be in charge, we determined that.
Mr. Chair, the 22nd is our peer picnic if we're still having.
Yeah.
Well,
He's gonna.
you work it out with him.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't do it on the 22nd, but we can do it.
So.
Yeah, I've got a project myself, but
Brought it into.
there's anything more important than this. in my mind.
I don't know what we got.
It's like on a Wednesday or something, we might,
Legal. I don't know what the date.
Tuesday.
well, that might be on Tuesday. We'll figure it out.
You plan on
Get your
Tuesday.
stuff done and then we'll
Okay.
figure it out.
How's that? for-
I'll send you and,
Yeah,
I'll,
so I want to check your work.
Actually, I have Mary Ellen check my work.
Bus warmed up.
Mr. Chair, I think you could put the workshop on the time where the working people in the city can attend, so they don't have to take off work. Just asking.
Keep listening.
That will work at it. You want it on Sunday?
Yes, Sunday's not my holiday.
Oh, we'll work on that,
Okay.
you know.
Just so people can respond, but if you do it at 2 in the afternoon, they're working. If you do it at 5 o'clock, oh, I'm so tired from working, you know, I need to go home. You can't do it on Saturday because Saturday is football, baseball, basketball. Can't do it on Sunday because that's church day.
But people with a Cubs car parks out in the parking lot, take up 3 parking places. And you know, that's a problem because all the people could have already been here and couldn't find a place to park.
Make me park somewhere else.
Well, you know how the Cubbies are. You gotta have, everybody else feel sorry for them.
That's the first place.
We'll schedule it and hope they can make it. Okay, we done with this item? Moving on, let's talk about spending some money for some of our local organizations.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we have 3 lodgers tax spending requests. The first one is for Tabosa. Tabosa is hosting a 14-day event. It will be a carnival happening on May 6th, 2024, with the possibility of 17 rides, 7 to 10 games. Central traffic was based on the 2024 event numbers, which estimated 4,775 people, with an average of 340 people per day. The 24 carnival is a great opportunity for the community to enjoy before the summer heat begins. This information was provided by Samantha Lovelace. I believe she is online. The applicant identified 6,745 ineligible expenses to be reimbursed at a 50% rate, totaling 3,372.50 to be awarded. This is the first lodgers tax application request for funding. The Occupancy Tax Board voted 3-1 on August 15th to recommend funding of up to $3,372.50, which is 50% reimbursement of total eligible expenses at $6,745. The action being requested by this committee is to consider a request for funding for the Tabosa Carnival for the dates of May 6th through the 19th of 2024 in the amount of up to $3,372.50, or reimbursement of 50% of total eligible expenses. I also have the chair, Carrie Moore, and our committee member, Jane Ann Aldrop from Occupancy Tax Board here if you have any questions, and I believe Samantha's online.
Nope. What's your pleasure?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that approve the request for funding for Tabosa Carnival for the dates of May 16th through 19th, 2024, in the amount of up to $3,072.50. Comes out of the lodgers tax. That this be placed on the consent agenda at the next council meeting.
Any further questions or comments? I second it. And negative votes. Passes 2-0.
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the second request is for the Glory Days 4-on-4 Inc. Glory Days travels across the country to put on the 4-on-4 flag football tournament. In 2023, there were 94 teams that participated with 2,800 and 3,500 attendees. 657 of those were athletes. 180 of the athletes and their families were from 50 miles or greater outside of Roswell. The applicant identified 12,800 in eligible expenses to be reimbursed at a 50% rate, totaling 25,600 of total awarded amounts. However, the Occupancy Tax Board identified some non-eligible items in their request. This is the first lodgers tax request for this particular organization. The Occupancy Tax Board voted 4-0 on August 15th to recommend funding of up to $10,250 at 50% reimbursement of eligible expenses, which were $20,500. The action being requested is to approve and consider this request as recommended by the Occupancy Task Force.
Question?
No questions.
Pleasure.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. I move that we approve the request for funding for Glory Days 4-on-4 Inc. Fling It for the dates of May 24, 26, 2024 in the amount up to $10,250 to be paid out of the lodger's tax fund and be placed on the consent agenda at the next city council meeting.
I'll second that. Any further comments? Okay, any negative votes? Hearing none. Passes 2-0.
All right, the next request was from the Roswell Symphony Orchestra for the spring 2024 event. The spring concert takes place on the evenings of February 24th, 2024 and April 27th, 2024. There are two subscription concerts will take place at Minnie Pearson Auditorium. The anticipated 1,500 concert goers from New Mexico and Texas. The applicant identified 4,500 in eligible expenses to be reimbursed at 50% rate, totaling $2,250. On their application, it did say 2,500. I believe that was just a typo. The occupancy task force did not recommend funding due to the ongoing late reports of the use of the funds. The fall 2022 reimbursement report was late and incomplete. An extension was granted. The spring 2023 reimbursement report was due on July 28th. An extension was granted, as well as providing all supporting documents. Reimbursement request, that extension was by August 10th for the policy. The reimbursement request was late again and not seen until August 15th. The approval to accept this is still pending. And the board and committee action from the Occupancy Tax Board was 3-0, with one individual recusing themselves from the vote on August 15th, not to recommend funding of up to the $2,250 reimbursement of total eligible expenses of $4,500. The action being requested is to concur with the Occupancy Tax Board recommendation of not to fund the Roswell Symphony Orchestra. And I believe you do have board president.
I do. Hello, everyone. I'm here to appeal to you guys to reconsider funding our request. We were caught at a bad time. We just had our executive director leave, and her last day was August 1st, at which point she informed me that things had not been turned in. So we've been scrambling. It's on me that this is late. I appeal to you guys. The symphony has been around since 1959. We have been applying for this for as long as I know. We have had 2 bad terms, and I understand that that is not acceptable. We have new staff in place that understand the importance of promptness and due diligence on items, especially from the city. We're going to be around and still supporting the community. We're still going to be using 200 hotel room nights this spring, regardless of whether you fund us. We're still going to, bring in 1,500 concert attendees, 10% of whom are from out of town. We'll still be here in the community. We would love your support. I also understand if our recent record is too much for you guys. I would really appreciate your support.
Any other comments?
Mr. House Commissioner, or whatever your name is, coordinator.
Very well put.
Well, I'm here when they told me this. I'm Jane Andover. I'm on the Occupancy Tax Commission, and I do support the symphony. But if they were late and everything, we knew you had lost your, director or whatever it is. And I do support them, so I'd like to, just let you know. Symphony is here, and thank God we have,
Any other comments?
This was earlier this year. There was a 50th year our conductor has been here, which is unbelievable. It doesn't happen anywhere, but the guy's been here 50 years, and So, I mean, it's a longstanding deal. Huh?
We're one of the lucky ones to have a symphony.
Yeah.
I'll also point out that I have the pleasure of asking for the smallest amount in the agenda today. It's only 20.
Did you get any coaching? All right, what's your pleasure?
It's obvious she's been deserted by some people who shall remain nameless.
I noticed that. I was looking to see, but anyway.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll just make a comment, I'll make a motion that if they didn't apply for reimbursement, that's up to them. That's not up to us to punish them for not moving forward. The money's there, either they get it or they don't. If they don't get it, it resides forward. So I'm going to move that we approve the funding of up to $2,250 for their spring dates of February 24 and April 27, 2024, for the eligible expenses. 50% of the eligible expenses to be placed on the consent agenda for the next city council meeting.
Did you say up to 20?
Up to $2,250.
Okay. I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, any opposition? Passes 2-0. Thank you. Now we got a budget adjustment. Uh-oh.
Oh my God. I thought we were not going to do that anymore. You promised me we weren't going to do that.
Well, I got threatened. That young lady sitting right there.
There were circumstances surrounding beyond your control?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you off your promise.
All right, Ms. Gomez, please.
Okay, item number 11 is a budget adjustment. It's for resolution 23XX, consider approval of resolution approving budget adjustment for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. The New Mexico Department of Finance Administration requires approval of a budget adjustment when increasing a revenue and or expense in the approved budget. The final budget was submitted to DFA on July 28, 2023, and the Law Enforcement Protection Fund was left off the budget due to not having the distribution amount in time for the due date, which was 7/31/23. The budget was returned by DFA to add the Law Enforcement Protection Fund to the budget before it would be approved by DFA. We would be increasing Fund 2255, Law and Protection Fund, revenues by 227 and expenses by 227. There was no legal review at this time, and consideration would be to approve the budget adjustment. And I stand for questions.
Questions?
No.
Anybody else? What's your pleasure?
Why it's going on the consent agenda as well. We're going to have a short city council meeting.
Get it on there.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Is that a promise?
Well, I'm working on it. Put everything on the consent agenda.
I've noticed that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution 24XX, approving the budget adjustment for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024, for the Fund 2255 Law Enforcement Protection Fund revenues of $227,000 and expenses of $227,000. I did say on the consent agenda.
Yes. Got a motion. Now you have a second. Any further comments? Hearing none. Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, passes 2-0. And now we're going to talk about, this looks like some roads at the airport. Okay. Who's got it?
Hello, Chair and Councilors. I apologize. I'm remoting in because I am homesick, but I wanted to make sure that this got presented, and if you have questions, I'm able to answer them. So this is Jenna Landfor. This is item number 12 on the agenda to consider approval to allocate $949,003 to hire Allen Roofing using an ITB 23-019 for insurance roof repairs. This is regarding a hail damage claim from 2021. Allen Roofing would be looking at repairing 1081A, 1083A, and 735, all of which are requiring a full roof replacement. At this point, we have followed all of the procedures for ITB, and we have state wage agreements on this contractor. We have notice of intent of prevailing wage from this contractor. His bonds are in place. And then also he has his notice of award. So I'm just asking that we consider to approve the reallocation of this money to, I guess, or the allocation of this funding to hire Allen Roofing so that I'm able to move forward with these hail damaged roofs from insurance claim 2021.
Yeah. This is the same amount as the claim. We're not going to be out any, we've received all these insurance proceeds. We have not received them.
Well, we received them back in 2019, 2020.
These costs are going to be more than what we got
Yes.
compensated because we've waited 3 years.
Yes.
Way to go.
No wonder we're broke.
I don't want to say a word.
I think we're
Mr.
looking
Chair.
at about $2 million that was received in insurance money, and I think we're probably looking close to $3 million in actual costs. So,
Mr. Chair, one of the items that we're looking at trying to get this moved forward as well is I'm working diligently with the insurance company to still get our depreciation. That has been on an extension.
was that granted?
The extension has been granted as of now, yes.
To when?
As long as I have everybody bounded, David Bellino from the insurance company will go and discuss the extension past October 11th. But he sounded optimistic with me on the phone that as long as we have all of these contractors in place and all of our procurement out of the way, that they will honor their depreciation.
Okay. So the insurance claim will cover the actual replacement costs, is what you're saying? In today's
Yes, sir.
dollars? Okay.
Yes, sir. For these roofs, I know for sure what will happen.
Okay. Well, that's good news. Makes me feel better.
And for the record, Foster arrived at 3:27.
Thank you. So, any further questions or comments? This thing's been hanging fire like lots of other projects. We need to get
3
it
years.
over with.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it over with. Let's go.
We'll be coming back to you with the budget adjustment for that because when the final budget was done, the $2 million was left off the budget. So we'll be coming back for that. We're trying to get all of the costs associated so we know what to ask for.
Okay. What's your pleasure?
Okay. Well, I'm going to make a motion that we approve to allocate $949,003 to hire Allen Roofing ITB 23-019 for insurance roof repairs for building 1081A, building 1083A, and building 735 to be placed on the consent agenda at the next council meeting.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none. Passes 3-0. So moving on to the next item, which is a further continuance, different contractor for roof repairs. Proceed.
Yes, sir. This is to consider approval to allocate $746,165.25 to hire custom construction using the same ITB 23-019 for insurance roof repairs. Again, these are hail damaged claims from 2021. Building 734, Building 1000, Building 1002, Building 1049, Hangar 1534 and Hangar 1535 will all require significant replacement. Most of them are full replacement, but there are a couple in this that are just repair work. And I'm just seeking that we allocate that same amount of money to hire custom construction for the insurance roof repairs.
Questions?
And again, you're working with the state insurance. So
Yes,
that
sir.
Full replacement.
Yes, these two, have gone very well with David Bellino. We've been on the phone daily in the last week and a half, and then also been working with the contractors. For custom construction, I do have the state wage agreements in place. They do have their notice of award. I'm awaiting from custom construction his notice of intent for prevailing wage and his bond. I guess in the contract that we had signed with him regarding the ITB, we had something wrong in his name. So I'm working with the contracting person, Vicki Eaton, to get that squared away so we can get the contract signed and then his bonding will be secured.
Thank you. I'm thankful Counselor Foster is here now, because I have made 12 motions, Counselor. It's your turn.
Well, if you actually had it at a time I could be here, then I would, but.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here.
All right, we can try to put this on consent too, but I think the other one will come off consent just because the.
Put them on, let them pull them. Whatever your flavor is.
But I would like to make a motion to send to full council for approval of $746,165.25 to hire custom construction using ITB 23-019 for insurance repairs for buildings 734, 1000, 1002, 1049, 1534, and 1535.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second. Any further comments? Hearing none. Any negative votes? Hearing none, passes 3-0.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So we need approval of the minutes for the August 3rd meeting. I've read them. I didn't see anything else needed to be changed. But you may have different opinions.
I have no.
Anything?
Okay, what's your pleasure?
Okay, I'll take it. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the August 3rd, 2023 Finance Committee.
Got a motion?
Second.
Any other comments by anybody? Hearing none. Any opposition? Hearing none, passes 3-0. For the information report, which one of you is going to take this?
The grocery receipts, is that where you're starting?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Uh,
Start at the.
So, okay. Ed read earlier the statement that came on our letter from DFA. This is approving our fiscal year 24 budget. And in it, DFA is telling us that we are depleting our general fund cash balance by 18.09%. But it shows that we at least have an approved budget through DFA at this point. We have our first quarter DFA report that's going to be due the end of September. Tony will start working on that. And I think we're going to start bringing that to you all so you get more accustomed to seeing the reporting and the layout and what goes in and comes out of the general ledger to get us to our ending cash balance. Any questions on the DFA report?
The 18% is just on budgeted, correct?
It is.
Explain to me the difference between budgeted and actual spent, how we've been over the last, say, 5 years. We've been over budget or under our budgeted amounts?
For budget purposes, the last number of years, and I'd have to actually go back and look, this would be common for budget numbers. For actual numbers, we do not go over budget.
All right, that's just what I.
And we don't go over budget because we use our cash reserve.
Well, and some of the years we actually generate more revenue than what our expenses are. The biggest
There's a carryover.
The biggest item are the capital projects. If a project is budgeted to finish this year and it doesn't and it carries over, then all of that expense isn't hitting in the current year. So that's pretty much an expense savings for you in this year because we're on a cash basis. So on June 30th, if it's not paid, then it falls into next fiscal year. So for budgeting purposes, our budget isn't real accurate because we don't look at it like that. And I think we need to start looking at it so we have better budgets.
Mr. Chair, it's a distortion of the budget because it encumbers the funds, makes them look like they're not available. The project, when it comes to fruition, you don't actually expenditure it out. It carries over to the next year, and depending on how large or small or how the volume of those total dollars in terms of projects distorts your budget.
And looking at the actual budget here, our beginning cash balance is 22,734,579. Our projected ending balance is 26,000.
Well, but you're looking at that number's the ending for the entire city of Roswell. Look at this line across the top up there. That's your ending cash balance for general fund. And that's what we're talking about on here. And of course, that's got the 3/12 reserve coming out of it because the reserve only applies to general fund. But for total budget purposes.
And on the next slide, we're going to be looking at, or coming up is we're looking at our projected revenue, GRT, and it's up.
Yeah. Any more questions on that? For GRT, this is the report that you all are accustomed to seeing. I will say that on the fiscal year 24 year-to-date actuals were up 13.93% on July and August based on budget of 42 million. So in July, we were up 417,000. In August, we're up 511,000 above what was budgeted. Next slide. On, and this is cannabis. I went in and only did the 23 actuals because 24 or 22, we only had 1 month in there. But for August of 23, budgeted was, or I guess actual collected was 23,688, and our year-to-date is 43,421. Next slide. Do you have? No. So we're missing some slides in there on the actual GRT for, I think it's in your packet, the graphs. I went back and adjusted the numbers for 19 through 23 to be gross GRT numbers because part of the numbers in there were net, the admin fee, and then some of them were gross. And when you're comparing it to a budget that is your gross GRT, it doesn't make sense. So I went in, and so if you all look at prior months or even years, as was pointed out to me, I did change them because I went back and picked up all gross numbers.
We're looking at gross.
You're looking at gross.
Administrative fee from the state.
Pardon me? Before the administrative fee.
And could you explain to people how much that administrative fee from the state is?
Oh, it averages, I don't know.
3%? 3%.
So you're looking at about $700,000 a year.
Yeah.
At least it's not
right
1.4 that they were trying to do a few years back.
But, you know, so some of the numbers, I think when you look at the slides, the variance is a bigger variance than what was actually presented because some of those numbers were net, the admin fee. So we've sort of revamped this whole thing. The same with the cannabis. We're gonna, those a little bit different.
Yeah, we paid the state $1.3 million last year to send us our money. Yeah. Tidy little sum.
Any questions on GRT?
The state's direct cost fee, is that set annually and kept at a certain rate annually?
No, it's set by statute and they can't, I mean, it was set up and a few years back, they decided to administratively change it to 6%. And there was a lawsuit and we got the money, we got part of our money back. And it's set by the legislature at 3%.
And there has been a settlement of, I think, twice in probably the last 4 or 5 years of some GRT settlement. I haven't been able to really identify that, so it is embedded in these numbers because it wasn't done as a separate deposit or it wasn't done, where I could tell that that was the settlements, and I haven't been able to find what that is because that's going to skew our numbers some too.
Total settlement we got should have been about 1.2 million. It's not going to appear that it was just a lump deposit. That 4 years ago.
Any other questions? Okay. Talk about grants and projects.
Chairman, Councilman, Mayor, in this actual report, we have a new appropriation from the Roswell Police Department for their new vehicles. They have already placed the order. They're getting outfitted now. The 485 is not showing in the budget because it came afterwards, so that will be adjusted, I think, in October. We should, by that time, we should probably have everything already back, and then the reimbursement should already have been sent out. So we should do everything before the end of the year and close that one out. So that'll be really good. We did receive money that we sent in June for reimbursements that hit this actual year. So we received the $11,056.12 for the Roswell Museum and Arts Center. And that's for all of the construction they're doing, flooring, that sort of thing. We also received the police department renovations money for $619.15.35. And then we also encumbered the $251,866 for the roof. And it did hit our ICIP as one of the, I think it's a #1 project. So hopefully we'll get the additional funding that we were using for the roofing. The Air Center did get their reimbursement for $78,993. That came in late August. And then we got the Virginia Park payment. And that also came in August. We submitted it in last fiscal year. That was for $340,842.44. That project has been closed out. We used 100% of the amount. McBride Cemetery was reappropriated, so we have a completely new number. So the appropriation number now is 23H4074. What we had left on that was what was moved over, 442,520.80. We have an amount that will go out, a request for proposal. We couldn't submit it last fiscal year because they had reverted it to a new appropriation. And so they asked us to wait until that came in so we can go ahead and reappropriate everything there. So that will be coming in hopefully Once we submit that, once we get the NOO approved for the changes, we should get that out hopefully next month. So we should be doing pretty good. We did apply for a grant for the animal services in the amount of 50,000, which is a match. We used what we already had in our budget. So there wasn't anything extra. And then we also applied for the grant. I'm trying to remember what the name of what that grant was, but that was for the arts. It was all of the community arts. I haven't heard anything back on either one of
There
those.
was a grant that went around, it was a special one that just came out.
Yeah.
And they got, it's for developing art within the community. So they had 10 agencies that got 25,000 apiece or whatever it was.
So we'll find out if we get funded for that. I think 20,000 of that would go to our museum, and the remainder of it would go through other agencies within the community. And I stand for questions.
Questions?
No.
Okay, move on, public affairs.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this is the lodger's tax update for June activity, which is collected in July. We had 2 hotels that were late reporting, one which did not report, which was the Sally Port. Our star data shows that we're at about 6% year over year on our occupancy and growth. And then the ADR percentage change was up just about 1% from last year. The next slide, which is the 5% lodger's tax. Our occupancy was about 57%, and then we collected 126,306 with the one hotel not. Of course, the like the bed fee, which is the $2.50. We collected 63,160. Same thing, one hotel that didn't report, 2 being late. We have had some questions about the short-term rentals. Unfortunately, we currently have 104 from our latest report that are operating in Roswell. However, only 7 of them are actually submitting their payments to the city. So, and I'll stand for any questions.
What do we do when, that's a state to go after those people that are not reported, correct? On the short-term rentals?
No, so it's actually triggered by ordinance. But I do know their behalf when they ask.
Yeah, so we're asking for those people.
Yes, so what you want? Yes, usually, are they, is this the same ones that are always like 30 days behind, or?
These are the
Airbnb.
Yes.
Oh, the B&Bs?
Yes.
Yeah, we can go after them.
Yeah.
There was an ordinance that was being worked on from community development before the previous director departing, because our current ordinance doesn't have any penalties if they don't report.
Yeah, so yeah, state law provides them for us. There's a built-in rate increase if they don't report.
Yeah.
And our ordinance for, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 10% late penalty. And those ones we do send out every month. We have the 2 to 3, and it's based on what they were supposed to collect. Do they pay it? I mean, how many late payments have you gotten?
Not many.
Yeah.
By the time I've been here.
Just not paying it.
There's
Of the 104, how many are national community set up?
no, there's 104 properties in Roswell that are currently advertising their property through Airbnb, VRBO, or other short-term sites.
Because normally don't those national sites are the ones that collect the fees and
We don't have one of those statewide agreements. It's on the state of New Mexico changed the ordinance in 2020. It's the owner's responsibility to submit the lodger's tax to the municipality.
because, I mean, and that's where I know our hotels get to that point where they think that the lodger's tax and the bed fee is their money that they're paying us. And it's like, no, it's a pass through.
Right.
You're not paying anything. Your customers are paying it and then paying it to us. But because I know I had one hotel talk to somebody and say, well, since we pay all this in, shouldn't we be able to get a lower rent on the Civic Center? And it's like, well, you're not paying it. you know, and when we passed the bed fee, that was the big thing that they threw a fit about, that it was costing them money. And it's like, it's not yours, it's a pass through. And so, and that's probably what's happening with this is I bet you the Airbnb's charging it, but then they're not passing it.
They're not remitting it
And if they are, then yeah, that would be a treasury item.
Yeah, Treasury refer me one day to do a test case. Take it out of the hat.
Me.
Well, sorry, the ordinance says that it's, you don't exactly follow ordinance over. But that's not here or there. The short answer is that the remedy of law, state law doesn't provide us a criminal remedy necessarily. What it does provide us is the ability to put a tax lien on the houses. And we're quite accomplished at that.
Good.
So we'll put a 5% lien on it. And we'll start slapping liens.
Have they received a very stern letter? Okay.
So we just had, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we just had our annual meeting where we remind them of their remittance of the tax to the city. We sent out over, gosh, I want to say like there was 92 letters when we first got the list. And then when the new ones, it was over 104. Of those 92, only 5 of them showed up to the meeting.
Go to work.
Well,
And we do send them certified.
That's all I was waiting.
and I wonder if we could ask, I mean, first of all, ask the Airbnb and Verbo and all them, are you charging it? And if you are, then why is it that you're collecting a tax and your operator's keeping it and not paying it? And so they may want to know that too, because that, I mean, that doesn't reflect well of them.
What kind of business agreement do they have for these national, basically it's an advertisement place.
But they collect the money, because when I've done an Airbnb, I pay Airbnb and they pay the home.
Well, but that goes back to contractual arrangement between the local and their corporate. The locals that are bound by an ordinance, not the big guys.
And I'm not saying, I'm just saying they may want to know, because if they are collecting something that's not getting paid, it's still their name.
I think we need to lien the property because that's who we need to go after.
Well, I would just say both ways too. They'll start saying we don't, I mean, they have standards that, business standards that they have for their contractors to be working at, and they may be saying, you take them off and we can lien the property.
I've never looked at one of these contracts. I don't know what the contractual relationship is. And I can assure you that if I was one of these Airbnbs and I owned the property and the city sent me a tax lien, then I would be, one, looking at the contract and let them contact whoever it is they're under contract with, say, hey, you guys are not, you're withholding money that I should receive so I can pay the city.
Well, I'm saying that they're getting the money. I bet you Airbnb is paying them. They're doing the lodger's tax. They're paying the homeowner. They're just not passing it on to us. And you look at it, if it was Chevy or a dealership, the dealer's the one that's in charge. But if they're doing something like that, Chevy would be coming back to them and saying, because it looks bad for Airbnb and it looks bad for those national companies. And so.
So if people could just request a spreadsheet with the addresses of every Airbnb we know of, we'll send a courtesy nasty gram. We'll move from there if we don't get responses.
Very good.
You like that courtesy nasty?
I said good enough to come back.
Okay.
Our new slogan, pay your bill.
Can we shut off their water?
Good
Haven't paid your bad fee, so shut
Are we
the.
looking at a provision in the ordinance? Okay. Do we have a city ordinance dealing with Airbnbs?
No, well, it deals with anybody who qualifies under the lodgers tax statute. They don't qualify. Generally speaking, it's just, if somebody has an Airbnb for 2 weekends a year, it's not worth my time.
Oh, I get that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's every 3 months we have to send out a letter to a hotel reminding them. One time I think it was Josh just called corporate up and said, you haven't paid your taxes. They paid the next day. So that seems to get their attention.
They definitely listen when it's our legal department versus us.
Okay. All right. What else you have?
That's all I have, unless you guys have any other questions for me.
Questions?
I will say, I like the, I guess call it stuffer or the notification you put in the water bill for the fee abatement. I think well done.
Thank you.
And got that message out to people, and hopefully we're going to see some impact from that. I don't think we have yet, but at least we notified everyone. And that's a good way to do it, it's their water bill. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. That campaign is currently running and will run through the end of the fiscal year. We're on the billboards, we'll have that insert, and then we'll be on and off again on the
Good. Done? Okay. Talk about thank you for your inventory on your equipment. And I hope that all the departments before coming, we got the PG, we got yours. I think I have one from you.
It's sitting on my desk.
It's sitting on your desk, so I don't have it. I don't have it.
Boy, I felt that bus.
He said he would have it.
Well, it's kind of a new ambiance, so we'll get there when we get there. But, it's very helpful to try to make decisions on, you come in, want for something, and I look on here and I go, you just bought it last year, you know?
He didn't buy any of his pickups last year.
No, but whatever the issue may be, I think it's very helpful. I know it's helpful to me.
I think it's helpful for themselves, so.
Yeah.
They're managing these fleets.
Got to look at this stuff. Got to look at this stuff. Any questions about your first look at the solid waste fleet listing? Okay. So now we're in public participation. We've got some people on the line. Let's see if anybody has anything they want to say.
Mr. Chairman, you said online?
Okay. No, I'm just checking with these people online. Okay. Nobody there. All right. In the room.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Brooks with the Utility Workers Union of America. It's always a pleasure to be with you. As council knows, we represent the blue collar hourly workforce in this city, the folks who deliver essential services to City of Roswell residents every single day. Folks in sanitation, water, wastewater, streets, parks, transportation. In short, the dedicated loyal employees of the city who make the city a great place to live. As you know, when I was visiting with the committee last time, I was here to express our grave concerns that the current budget, eventually passed, fails to invest properly in public services for city residents by failing to invest properly in the skilled loyal employees who deliver those services. I'd like to just take a couple of minutes, 1 minute every time to raise this concern once again. You know, there's a principle enshrined in the preamble to the Constitution of Miami, the UWA, which is that we exist not only to advocate for the best interests of public service employees and utility workers, but also for the best interests of the public and their right to receive high quality, reliable public services. And the reason we have that principle enshrined in our Constitution is self-evident, right? No organization, whether private utility or government entity, can possibly hope to deliver high-quality essential services to the public if you don't invest in the employees who deliver those services. We think this is a principle that actually the city of Roswell also ought to take seriously. And yet we're really concerned that the budget that eventually passed doesn't live up to that principle. The budget that passed eliminated step increases for your loyal employees, cut potential cost of living increase to the bare bones to 1%. Notwithstanding the fact that the city's own wage study conducted last year showed that the city of Roswell is at least 7% behind competitive wages with every other surrounding community in the region. Notwithstanding the fact that, the cost of living last year was nearly 9%. And as a result of that, of course, what we're seeing are numerous vacant positions that go unfilled in the city. Skilled employees, long-term, loyal, dedicated employees continue to leave. They sit around kitchen tables debating whether or not they can afford to continue working for the city, whether they have to, by necessity, to take care of their families, move on. So we're here to urge the city to continue to revisit the need to invest in your employees. The good news, however, at least in our opinion, is that gross receipts taxes continue to come in very strong, far exceeding the projected GRT receipts that is in the existing budget. According to the figures we got from the city, the current figures we just talked about, your fiscal year, the actual fiscal year 23 GRT receipts were 6.5% better, stronger than fiscal 22. The fiscal year 24 year to date figures are 5% stronger than last year, which of course was 6.5% stronger than the year before that. Actually, your GRT actual receipts to date in 2024, just for July and August, compared to the budget projection for GRT receipts for the current budget, you have a surplus of nearly $1 million over the fiscal 24 projections. That's for only 2 months, right? So if you obviously just put in pencil paper, if you annualize that, you're looking at potential annualized GRT receipts of $5.6 million surplus over what you've projected for the budget. Now, I'm conscious that the several counselors on the council and also on this committee have committed publicly that you're willing to revisit the budget if the city finances can bear it. In fact, the amendment that passed to the budget specifically provided that the city manager should report in October to the council whether or not the city can revisit the budget to actually better provide for essential services to the citizens of Roswell by investing in your employees. So we encourage you to look at those numbers as you make that decision in October. Just want to point out a couple of things. Also, the current GRT projection in the budget as passed is $3.6 million less than the GRT collections in the actual amount of fiscal 22. In fact, the projection for this year's budget is nearly $1 million less than the actual collections in 22. And to the extent there was ever a concern about whether GRT collections would be weak this year, just remind council something you already know is that council has practiced, you've set aside in a reserve fund 3 times what state law requires in your reserve fund, which actually amounts to nearly $13 million, which is already baked into the budget, already set aside in the budget. And the purpose of that money, according to DFA and Santa Fe, is to maintain adequate cash flow if there are shortfalls in gross receipts collections. So the current budget, as you have it, not only lowballs GR2 projections based on the actual data. But it sort of ignores the fact that you already set aside nearly $13 million, 3 times what the state requires to provide for the very possibility that there might be shortfalls in budget. So we ask you to consider that in the next upcoming committee meetings and city council meetings. We pledge to work with the city to try to work through this, to help improve this budget so that you're actually investing in the city services that your residents deserve and expect and frankly rely on. So I thank you for that. Thanks for listening to me.
Any other comments from anybody? Good.
Wait a minute.
Oh, Rita, you've been sitting there so quietly all meeting, I forgot about you, I apologize.
Apology accepted. Chair, Rita Kane Dorhofer, very narrow, unstriped, Chicago Cubs mailbox, Mark Road. I was just wondering when we're going to get the final figures for the UFO festival.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
It usually comes out in October,
When in October?
the October Finance Committee.
Oh, so the first week in October.
So we'll see it next week, next time we meet. So make sure it's on the agenda. Report on the UFO. We'll see what that looks like.
Looks good.
Okay. Any other?
There's all kinds of stuff people are talking about how bad the attendance is. Different
Hey,
schools all
you
over.
throw us out with bathwater, anything? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Captain. Call you